Hey guys, I've got a couple of complimentary plays here for your Thursday night card, including the late night Pac-12 battle between Arizona State and Utah coming your way in just a moment. But first, I just want to give you a couple of thoughts here about the story that broke late this afternoon. You've undoubtedly heard that Vince McMahon has finally made it public. The long rumored story made it official. He's actually going to resurrect the long defunct XFL in a couple of years. He's going to be the sole owner of the teams. It's going to make its debut a couple of Januaries from now. And listen, I have been around long enough to see all these minor league football leagues come up and then ultimately meet their demise. Now, as a kid, the first one, of course, was the World Football League. And I have to be honest with you, the first team that I really followed as a kid was the Miami Dolphins, mainly because my mom bought me a turtleneck of the Miami Dolphins, and I really liked the colors. And my first electric football game, you remember those little electric football games you put down the players? It had some of the Miami Dolphins players featured in the game, and it happened to be that the Dolphins were coming off the 17-0 season. Well, that was a good enough reason for me as a kid to follow the Miami Dolphins. So in 1974, when the World Football League came about and the Dolphins were coming off the back-to-back championships, as a kid, I was devastated when Zonka and Jim Kick and Mercury Morris took their talents and took the money grab and went to the World Football League. Well, hey, listen, by 1975, midway through the year, that league met its demise. So fast forward, 1983. In college, I had the opportunity to cover the Philadelphia Stars. That was one of the beats that I got to cover. And my first job, ultimately, I was working for an organization called Dial Sports, where back before the internet, boys and girls, back before pagers, back before any normal mode of communication that now exists, people used to get their scores by calling a number 976-1313, where they would actually pay 10 cents a call to get their scores. And what did people get the scores for? Because they were gambling on the games and they needed the scores. But during the daytime, we ran it every half hour like a radio station, and it would be a 3 to 5 minute report where we would cover all the teams. And we would give sound bites, and we would give analysis, and we would give betting picks. Well, guess who covered the Philadelphia Stars, since I was covering them anyway coming out of college? Well, the first things that I ever bet on, baseball and USFL football. And let me just say, I still have a soft spot in my heart for the Houston Gamblers, the Run and Shoot, Jim Kelly, the late Jack Pardee, and the Philadelphia Stars. Because as a teenager, boy, did they make me a lot of money and funded a lot of my dates back in those days. But it was a great league. And until this guy came along who owned the New Jersey Generals, this guy, he had this grandiose plan to compete with the NFL. And then he suddenly moved the league to the fall to compete with the NFL. It lasted one more year. I don't know what the hell happened to this guy. Trump was his name. I don't know what probably failed in businesses and the rest of his life anyway. But he screwed the league and they went out anyway. So the XFL comes along, and it was a joke from day one. You knew it wasn't going to work. But at that point in this business, before these sites existed, it was toward the tail end of the 900 industry, an industry where when I first got into it, it was a $25 million a year business. Toward the end, it was a $2 million a year business, which is why I brought it over to the internet. Let me tell you, I made a fortune in the XFL. Not necessarily selling the picks, although there was certainly an interest because it filled a void on Saturday nights. Because listen, now we have such big marquee games in college basketball on Saturday nights. That wasn't the case 17 years ago when the XFL came out. And you had the national TV games, Tommy Maddox and, oh God, what, the LA Express? Oh, I almost loved Tommy Maddox as much as I loved Jim Kelly and the Houston Gamblers back in the day. Made me a fortune, made guys that were betting with me a fortune as well. It was a one-year wonder. You knew it was going to meet its demise. So today, Vince McMahon came out and said he was going to do things different, that the climate has changed because declining TV ratings mean that a league isn't so dependent on ratings. Social media is going to influence everything. Let me just tell you why this league, like all the other leagues, probably won't make it either. And there's three factors that come into play, and they kind of go hand in hand, okay? First of all, it's familiarity. Second, it's the quality of competition. And third, It's gambling. Whether that gambling is sports wagering or fantasy football, it's all gambling. No matter what those fantasy football purists will tell you, it's all gambling. Okay, familiarity. Listen, there is some tremendous CFL action out there. There is some tremendous Division II college football action out there. And even on the 1AA level as well. Tremendous games. Do you give a damn? Absolutely not, because you're not familiar. The competition is there, but you're not familiar. And you also can't gamble on it 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, right? They all go hand in hand. And that's what's going to be the problem, because sure, it's going to fill the void. And it's going to fill the void after the NFL season is gone. And McMahon has all these grandiose plans that, hey, it's not going to matter what the TV ratings are. It's not going to be anything for guys that have felony records. It's not going to have anything to do with anybody that wants to protest social issues, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be second-rate players that most people aren't going to give a damn about. And what has changed in the arena of sports gambling is college basketball is so much bigger now, gambling-wise, than it was 17 years ago. And that's where McMahon has made a big mistake. The other thing is the familiarity aspect. Yes, he's doing something smarter. The last league was put together on a shoestring budget, and they didn't have enough time to let the press work as an agent for the league to build anticipation. You didn't even have a chance to know who the hell the players were that you were supposed to be interested in as a fan or as a gambler, because if you didn't know who was playing, how were you supposed to be able to bet intelligently on these nationally televised games? Ultimately, I think also what's going to lead to the downfall of the league is they're going to go to all the secondary mid-major markets again. Markets like Birmingham. I'm just going to throw them out there again. Birmingham, Louisville, Memphis. Markets that haven't been able to ever really make it as football markets in the past, and they'll try it again. They're probably going to have to sprinkle in some major markets as well, where the costs are just going to be tremendous. Listen, the NFL has tried to establish in years past, the European market. Never worked. It's never going to work either, just because of the time change. But again, people now, everybody are talking about the declining football ratings. Why have the ratings really declined? Let me ask you, how many bad Thursday night and Monday night matchups did we have this year that you didn't watch the games, other than if you had a rooting interest from a gambling perspective or from a fan's perspective, because the matchups sucked? Now, let me ask you, what type of matchups are you going to have in the XFL? Competition, familiarity, and gambling. They all go hand in hand. Otherwise, you and we would be watching CFL action, Arena Football League action, WNBA action, and we'd be betting the NHL every damn night as well, like there was nothing else in the world to bet on. But we're just not interested. Otherwise, we would be out there betting Colonial Athletic Association games, Sunbelt games, instead of Big Ten matchups like Purdue and Michigan tonight. But we're just not interested. That's just the way it goes. That's the reality of sports gambling and how it affects TV. Otherwise, instead of building these colossal stadiums, they'd be building field-level bleachers. And that's how you'd be watching games. Okay, let's talk about a couple of guys here that have big plays. Eric Schrader won again last night. And he, of course, has another big game going tonight. Of course, didn't I just belittle the Colonial Association Conference? But there he has a big play tonight. Going and what is it, on Elan and Drexel, I think, tonight. So it's another 100 dime max rated release going for Eric tonight. And if I could find the damn play, I'd just tell you which one it is. He's going for winning day number 12 out of 16. 7th top rated 100 dime college basketball play this season. On Elan and Drexel, you get it for over half price off by using the coupon code Eric. Hey, listen, I talked about the NHL. Gabe DuPont has had one hell of a season. Tonight, third 100 dime NHL play of his career. $10 bettors have won $8,300 already this season. Hit his first 100 dime play back on November 13th. Calgary 7-4 over St. Louis. You got it for over half price off. Same thing goes tonight using coupon code GABE. And Brad Wilton raised the bar 150 dime release tonight, the 5th ever since he joined these sites back in February 2013. It is on Michigan and Purdue. That you get for over half price off as well. Let's get to your complimentary plays. I'm going to go with Arizona State minus 8 points at home tonight against Utah. The Devils are back home after a road split. They lost by 9 at Stanford, and then they beat California by 8. This is surprisingly only their 3rd home game at Wells Fargo Arena in Tempe this season. 2-3 road start, and listen, it could have been a lot worse because they lost their first game of the season a couple weeks back at Arizona. Then they went to Colorado, got upset there. Then they were facing an 0-3 start when they arrived in Utah on January 7th, and they held on for an 80-77 win. And they had been 0-5 at Utah since the Utes joined the Pac-12 back in 2011. In fact, they had lost 7 of the first 10 meetings with the Utes prior to holding on for that game. Utah had lost 4 straight games before beating Washington and Washington State in Salt Lake in their last 2 outings. They're 2-2 on the conference road. They won their first 2 at Oregon and Oregon State. Then they got blown out at UCLA and USC. They're 2-4 in true road games overall. Arizona State's 9-1 at home this season. They only loss came against Oregon. Listen, here's the thing with Arizona State. This is a team that is a guard-oriented squad, 3 great shooting guards. These guys hit, they win in blowout fashion. They struggle, and everybody doesn't do a good job collectively at hitting the glass because they are a small team. They lose. I like the way they're playing right now. I like the fact they're finally playing at home. And Utah is not the veteran Utah team they were a year ago. This is a team that has struggled on the road, and I'm willing to lay the 8 points because I just think that this is an Arizona State team that, I'll give you another team like this, like Xavier. They're a team that you got, it's kind of like the stock market. Right now, I think it's a buy opportunity on Arizona State, so I am going to buy on them tonight. I'm going to lay the points with Georgia State in Sun Belt Conference play tonight against Texas Arlington, a team that, has made me a lot of money over the years, but this is a Texas Arlington team that has certainly struggled on the road this season. Eagles, meanwhile, have won 5 straight. The Mavericks are 1-3. That's Texas Arlington on the road. The first warning sign is when they had their conference road opener at Coastal Carolina. They were a 4-point favorite. They lost 90-65. Then they went to Appalachian State. They were a 5-point favorite. They lost that one only by 4 points. Then they went to Arkansas Little Rock a week and a half later. They were a 9-point favorite. They lost that one 77-65. Then recently here at home, they got crushed by Louisiana Lafayette. It's a senior-laden team, just not playing well. So I'm going to lay the points with Georgia State. Again, they've won 5 straight. RPI-wise, these two teams are about even. Mavs only 4-6 in true road games this season. So again, I'm going to go with them in this spot. Here's one more complimentary play. I'm going to take a chance and go with SMU minus the 6 at Connecticut. This is being played in the Huskies' home gymnasium. SMU followed up the upset of Wichita State last Wednesday by coming back and avenging an early season road loss at Tulane with a win against the Green Wave, 73-62. They did lose one of their top players, junior guard Jerry Foster, recently to a torn ACL. They only have like 8 scholarship players because remember, they had their scholarship limit cut down because of that stuff that went on with Larry Brown a couple of years ago from 13 to 11. They've since lost 2 players. They've got another guy redshirting, so they only have 8 players. The good news here tonight is Connecticut had their second leading scorer and rebounder, Terry, I think you pronounce his last name, Laurier, who's averaging nearly 15 points and 5 rebounds a game. He suffered a facial sinus fracture about a week and a half ago and had to have surgery here the other day, so he's out a couple of weeks. They've lost 6 of their last 9 games, and I'm willing to go with SMU. If I had to rate the plays, I'd take Arizona State number 1. Oh boy, Georgia State number 2 and SMU number 3. And that's how I'm sticking to that story tonight. Good luck, everybody, and talk to you again tomorrow when we do this.